Hi, I'm Eric Bolling in for Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Let's get straight to our top story. Obama versus Trump. President Obama campaigned vigorously for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election, telling supporters, quote, "My name may not be on the ballot, but our progress is on the ballot," unquote. Despite Clinton's defeat, Obama still thinks he would have beaten President-elect Donald Trump in a head-to-head matchup, as he told his former advisor David Axelrod in a podcast yesterday.
I'm confident that if I had run again and articulated it, I think I could have mobilized a majority of the American people to rally behind it. I know that in conversations that I've had with people around the country, even some people who disagreed with me, they would say the vision, the direction that you point towards is the right one.
Axelrod was later asked if Obama's comments were a thinly veiled swipe at Hillary Clinton.
Is this kind of a harsh judgment of Hillary Clinton? He would have been able to do what she could not?
Well, he said this in service of a larger point, which is he doesn't accept that the election was a verdict on his view of where the country should be going. He points out that she got a majority of the vote. He feels that he would have won the election. But there's no doubt that there is some criticism implicit in his remarks. And he went on to say that perhaps the Clinton campaign took too much for granted. Perhaps they played it too cautiously.
For his part, Donald Trump dismissed the president's claim, writing on Twitter, quote, "President Obama said that he thinks he would have won against me. He should say that, but I say no way. Jobs leaving, ISIS, O'Care, etc." unquote. Joining us now with reaction is Lisa Booth, a Fox News contributor, and Washington, D.C., Richard Goodstein, a Democratic strategist who worked on Clinton's 2008 campaign. Richard, really, of course he's going to say that now. Oh, I would have beaten Donald Trump because he couldn't have run. That's an obvious question. But let's go to this. Is he saying he would have done better against Trump than Hillary did?
Yeah, and let me give you one illustration, Eric. I was a poll watcher in 2008 in an entirely black voting place for early voting on Election Day in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. On the last day of early voting, remember the lines were hours long, a first-time voter summoned me over and he said, "Sir, can I just vote for Barack?" And I started to say, "Well, you could, but your Congressman Alcee Hastings is black." He said, "Well, why don't they have an express line for people like me?" Okay? And I don't think he was joking. I think he was serious. If they had had one, he would have used that in a second.
Okay, so what's Richard?
And my point is, you couldn't have paid that guy to vote for Hillary Clinton. The 2016 version of that guy didn't really care about her. And the 10,000 votes that she lost by in Michigan, the 20,000 in Wisconsin, the 40,000 in Pennsylvania, that guy and his sister and tens of thousands like him, they would have come out. They didn't come out for Hillary.
Okay, very good. Lisa, what do you think? Was that President Obama taking a shot at Hillary saying, well, if it were me, I would have beaten him?
I think I was taking a shot at Hillary Clinton, obviously Donald Trump as well. But as you mentioned earlier in the show, President Obama said that his legacy was on the ballot in 2016. And essentially what this was rejection of that legacy, because what did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump ran on eradicating President Obama's legacy. This was a rejection of President Obama's vision for the country and his policies as well. He talked about unraveling Obamacare. He talked about unraveling the Iran deal. Even if you look at something like the Supreme Court, 21% of voters said that was the most important issue for them when deciding which candidate to vote for. Those voters overwhelmingly went for Donald Trump. That's a rejection of what President Obama would have chose as a Supreme Court nominee as well.
Not only that, Richard, President Obama himself said, I remember this on the stump, he was saying, a vote for Hillary is a vote for my legacy. And guess what happened? They lost.
We're talking about the 2016 results, right? That Hillary won by almost 3 million. So
no, I'm talking about the 2016 results where President-elect Donald Trump won 306 to 235.
But it cannot be said that if one candidate stands for X and the other stands for non-X, and the X person wins by more than 3 million, you can't really say that the public was behind non-X.
We can do this until we're blue in the face, but if you remove California, Donald Trump still wins the popular vote. By the way, Hillary Clinton could be president of California at this point.
Well, and not to mention the fact, Eric, too, that Donald Trump was able to flip 217 counties from Democrat in 2000 and the previous election to Republican, right? And you look at the 700 counties that President Obama won in 2008 and 2012, Donald Trump was able to flip 1/3 of those. And I think a large part of that reason was because he ran a campaign, as I mentioned before, on eradicating President Obama's policies, those failed policies, you don't think that voters who have felt the economic ramifications of President Obama's policies, whether it's the fact that he's the only president in history, hold on, I let you speak, the only president in history to not see 3% economic growth, the fact that we've seen more small businesses go under than be created, the fact that in places like Arizona, insurance premiums have increased over 100%. You don't think that voters went to the ballot knowing that President Obama's legacy was on the ballot, which is a pure repudiation of his legacy and his policies?
What I think is that having brought unemployment down by a half, by having the stock market virtually triple under the Obama presidency, by having finally middle-class incomes go up for the first time in 15 years. Yes, I think all those people in counties that went Obama in 08 and 12 would have voted for the real thing in 16 and not for the guy who is making all these promises that we know he can't keep.
Okay, no, fair enough. Maybe that is the case. However, for President Obama to just a month after the election to come out and say, by the way, I would have won, he is taking a shot at Hillary Clinton. I mean, look, there's no question he was her best surrogate. I'd say Michelle Obama and Barack Obama were Hillary Clinton's best surrogates. But in hindsight, Obama has to protect his legacy. And the question is he now trying to distance himself from Hillary's loss so that his legacy is intact, Richard?
Well, again, Obama's favorability numbers and Trump's were the inverse of one another on election day. The fact is, as regards Hillary, I think if you had Hillary Clinton on this program, Eric, she would admit that there were certain things that she would do differently, not just campaign in Wisconsin, Michigan, and so forth, but even harnessing that change.
I mean, not just that, but how about that was a big flaw on their part.
Of course. But I'm talking about just the change argument. The fact is, I think she and her team could have done a better job.
Here's the problem, Rich. I'm going to bring Lisa in. Here's the problem.
Yeah.
But up until that election, up until November 8th, President Obama was like, yeah, Hillary Clinton and I, we're on the same team here. We're both progressive. You vote for hers and vote for the progressive agenda. She loses. All of a sudden, he wants no part of it.
Also, not to mention the fact, if you want to talk about facts, you want to talk about some numbers, how about the rejection that President Obama's legacy has seen from the state level to the federal level throughout the past 8 years? You look at the fact that the Democratic Party holds fewer state legislatures than ever before in history. Republicans control the majority of governorships in the country. Republicans now have the House and Senate under President Obama's failed policies. Now they have the White House. So don't tell me that this was not a repudiation of President Obama's failed policies.
Hold on. But let's just add this. You can't say this is all one team, this is all what we're about, until your team loses and say, I had nothing to do with them.
Also, can we just have a civics lesson for every Democrat in the country who clearly doesn't know how the electoral process works?
Richard, final thought.
In every other country on the planet, what we call popular votes are votes.
Excuses.
I understand there's an electoral
every
system.
single week.
I understand. And if we take Comey and the Russians out of the mix, I swear there'd be a different result.
And let's not leave Obamacare and deplorables. Lisa, Richard, thank you very much. When we come right back, accusations that President Obama sold out one of our closest allies also. Violence and chaos in malls all throughout the country on the day after Christmas. What set it off? We'll have a complete report moments away. In the Impact segment tonight, did President Obama sell out one of the United States' closest allies? On Friday, the U.S. abstained from a vote in the United Nations to condemn Israeli settlements in disputed areas. This was a dramatic break with long-standing U.S. policy protecting Israel from such condemnation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the action a shameful anti-Israel ambush, and now his government is claiming the Obama administration was actually behind the UN resolution.
We have rather ironclad information from sources in both the Arab world and internationally that this was a deliberate push by the United States, and in fact they helped create the resolution in the first place. And so it's deeply disappointing that this has been the path of President Obama.
Israel is not being deterred by the vote. The government says it will move ahead with plans to build thousands of new homes in the disputed areas and rethink its relationship with the United Nations, an organization that critics say is a disaster.
It is an organization that exacerbates tensions. It does not assuage them. It was born in hope. The end of the Second World War, it turned out to be a disaster. I think that's good real estate in downtown New York City, and Trump ought to find a way to put his name on it and turn it into condos.
Joining us now from Washington, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Ambassador, thanks for joining us. Boy, we were on this a lot last week as well. Let's talk a little bit about that comment. Is this a deliberate push by the U.S. to, I guess, sway the sentiment in the Middle East?
Well, I think it is, and I think it's clearly intended to box in the new Trump administration. These are decisions that fly in the face of half a century of American policy, and Obama has brought them forward with a month to go in his presidency. I think it's very ill-advised. I think if there are any foreign officials or foreign diplomats listening tonight, I just say don't operate under any illusions here. No matter what else Obama does from last Friday through to the 20th of January, don't operate under any illusions that that's not easily reversible by an incoming Trump administration in terms of U.S. policy.
So, Ambassador, it feels like President Obama is no friend to Israel based on this latest act. Is he setting a personal score with Benjamin Netanyahu by doing this?
Well, I think there is personal score there to settle, but I think this is a deep reflection of Obama's ideology. And he sees Israel in much the same way I think he sees the United States. He dislikes American exceptionalism. He dislikes Israeli exceptionalism. And I think he sees this as his way to set it straight. They're just one more country, just like the United States is one more country. And he's going to try and affect that in his remaining days in office. That's what this vote was about, in my view.
Does this assist the peace process in Israel and the Middle East?
I think it cuts entirely against it. Look, the whole theory of the United States and the rest of the world, frankly, after the 1967 war was the only way you're ever going to get peace in the Middle East is for the parties to the conflict to agree to themselves. Any attempt to impose peace from the outside would inevitably fail. And because people are frustrated that things haven't turned out the way they want, they're now trying to impose a particular kind of solution on Israel. As you said, the Israelis are defying the resolution already. There's no way this is going to be conducive to peace. And they should have understood it. The president should have understood it. It'll actually, I think, boomerang.
But it does embolden the anti-Israel faction, the pushback, and some of them, frankly, are people we don't really get along with also.
No, that's right. Look, this has been a tragedy for the United States and Israel, and frankly for some of our Arab friends in the region. We had indications that a number of countries, interestingly including Russia, at the end of last week, were beginning to realize that shoving this resolution through was not a good idea. They went ahead and did it anyway. Now we're going to have negative consequences. I think there are a number of things that the Trump administration, when it takes office, can do to try and reverse this. I've written about it in the Wall Street Journal this morning. We talked a little bit about it last week. I think beyond anything else, in the next slightly less than a month until the 20th of January, foreign governments should not go along with any Obama plan or suggestion or idea that they can carry this process any further forward. Enough damage has been done. Don't make it worse.
Well, what else is there? What else might President Obama do in the next 24 days?
Well, there's a lot of speculation, but here's a hard fact. On January the 15th, France will convene a so-called Middle East Peace Conference in Paris. And, just consider the timing of that, Eric. 5 days before a new American president takes office, the French are going to convene a peace conference. That was a Freudian slip. It will be a press conference. And they might come out with a declaration that acknowledges the existence of a Palestinian state. There are a lot of possibilities. They could then bring that declaration back to New York and try and ram that through the Security Council. This whole thing is a big mistake, and I do think it'll have negative consequences for people who really want a just and lasting peace in the Middle East.
Ambassador, I only have about a half a minute or so. Very quickly, what is our share of the UN? I know it's about 20 to 22% of the budget. What kind of hard number does that look like?
Well, when you add everything together, assessed contributions and voluntary contributions across the UN system, roughly it's about $8 billion a year. It's about $3 billion for the UN's regular budget in peacekeeping, and we pay 22% of the regular budget, 25% of peacekeeping.
A lot of people are saying push back on some of that, maybe cut that in half. Ambassador Bolton, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Straight ahead, an explosion of Christmas holiday violence in Chicago leaves nearly a dozen people dead. Can anything be done to stop madness? We'll debate it moments away. In the last 5 years or so, 6 years, it's getting substantially worse. What is happening? What changed?
Well, I think the economy is changing. Look what happened in 2007. We're still seeing the results of that bad economy, of people being laid off and jobs not in our community anymore. You can go back 50 years, though, and track why we are experiencing what we're experiencing today, and that is disinvestment, non-investment, whatever you want to call it, in the African-American community is going to surface and is going to look like this.
Let me bring Joe in. Joe, the economy is bad in a lot of places. A lot of places are suffering the way Chicago has. In fact, maybe even suffering worse than Chicago. Yet we don't see the spike in murders and homicides and shootings that we see in Chicago.
Look, Eric, this isn't complicated. It's called the Ferguson effect. For about 2.5 years, ever since Ferguson, Missouri, we've been hating on cops in this country. A lot of people have. There's been a war on cops in this country, and you can see it most pronounced in Chicago. Homicides are up. Shootings are up. And yet, Eric, arrests in Chicago are way down. Cops are policing less aggressively. They're policing less assertively. Nobody can blame them because from Rahm Emanuel to everybody on down in the city of Chicago, they're getting hated on. When they go into some of these South and West Side neighborhoods, man, they're swarmed by some of these folks, and everybody pulls out their cell phones. Cops are tired of this, all of this hating on our cops, and what it's leading to, Eric, is it's leading to young black men being shot and killed.
Okay, and Matt, let me add something here. Chicago is one of the most difficult places to get a gun to defend yourself. Look, you want to look at it, whether it's well, it is. It has some of the most stringent gun laws in the country. Washington D.C. and Chicago are two specific areas, and look at the violent or the crime rates in both of those cities.
Well, first off, in response to Joe, I would hate to think that cops' feelings are so hurt that they would stop policing. When you have cases like Eric Gardner being choked to death by a cop on videotape in broad daylight, and we can't bring those cops to justice, then we have a breakdown in the criminal justice system.
They can't do their jobs. It's not their feelings. They can't do their jobs. They're getting people throwing rocks and bottles at them. Eric, 2 months ago, we had that female Chicago cop who was afraid to pull out her gun when some thug attacked her because she was afraid about all the bad press she got. That cop almost died. This is real.
Joe, let me say this. Cops can do their job. Their job is not to shoot unarmed black people. If they do their job and protect and serve black people, maybe you would see a reduction in crime, and maybe black people would be less afraid of cops, and maybe we'll see a functioning community. But until America decides that it wants to quit treating
Matt,
black people like a commodity in this country.
Let me get this straight. You have a couple of incidences where cops shot unarmed people, and
a couple?
Hold on. But this, so you're going to blame these couple of incidences on a 753 murders in Chicago, a 58% increase in murders, a 45% increase in shootings over a violent year last year as well. I mean, it just feels, look, you have tough gun laws, you have a very liberal mayor. You don't think this has anything to do with it, Matt?
No, this is not a party issue. This is not a Democrat or a Republican Party issue. This is not a Libertarian or a Whig Party issue. This is an American issue. America has not invested in black America, and this is the result of it. Schools are broken down. Neighborhoods are broken down. There's no trust between the community and law enforcement.
It's specific to Chicago. These crime rate spikes are specific to Chicago. Let me get Joe in there. I'll let you get back in, Matt, but let me get Joe in. Go.
Yeah, Eric, it's always been that way, and I'm not going to disagree with Matt. Chicago is a typical Democrat one-party run city that has destroyed life for African Americans in the city. But as long as African Americans in the city of Chicago continue to hate on our cops, the ironic thing is African Americans are going to die. And that's what we've seen in the city of Chicago the last 2 years.
Final thought, Matt.
All right, I will say this. The only thing that distinguishes Chicago maybe from other cities is the legacy of gangs, and we've had it going back to organized crime, the Chicago outfit,
Matt,
the street
I want to give you the last word, but you can't spin your way out of this. Hold on.
Chicago.
Los Angeles had a far worse gang problem than Chicago ever had. I know, I lived in both cities. L.A. back in the 80s was far worse than Chicago is.
They're in every city.
L.A. does not have the long legacy that Chicago has. That's probably what distinguishes Chicago from any other city. But what Chicago is similar to every other city in this country,
Matt, the crime rate, the murder rate was low from 2000 to 2005, from 95 to 2005. It dipped. It's on its back rise again right now. Guys, I got to leave it right there. Very, very hot debate. Joe, Matt, thank you. Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening. Post-holiday shoppers run for cover after chaos and violence break out at more than a dozen malls across the country. We'll have the very latest. Then, far-left insanity reaches new heights on a college campus, with one professor calling for white genocide. Now he claims it was just satire. And we hope you stay tuned for those reports. In the Unresolved Problems segment tonight, police still trying to figure out what set off violence and chaos at malls throughout the country last night, one night after Christmas. Fox News' Rob Schmidt has much more on the story.
Police evacuating the Town Center Mall in Aurora, Colorado after several fights at the shopping center.
We had multiple skirmishes and altercations that were occurring throughout the mall that we needed to close down the mall for public safety.
The brawls are said to have started during an arrest when an unruly crowd of some 500 people advanced on one officer. At least 5 juveniles taken into custody.
We had a citywide call for assistance. All officers that were available throughout the city were called in.
Another disturbance taking place at Beechwood Place Mall in Ohio, where authorities used pepper spray to disperse a large crowd after a fight there. A report of gunfire later determined to be false. But police did place at least one male juvenile under arrest for allegedly trying to hit an officer.
Running, screaming, I seen a girl get trumbled over. Like, it was scary. It was really scary for real. Like, and it's just, like I said, it's just really sad.
Similar scenes playing out in Connecticut, Illinois, Tennessee, and several other states.
I'm still not quite processing exactly, but yeah, scared is a very good thing. I've been calling everyone and just trying to, get home where I'm safe.
There's no official word on whether all these fights are connected, although there are indications there may be a link to social media. In New York, Rob Schmidt, Fox News.
And joining us now from Newburyport, Massachusetts, for more on what might have prompted some of the brawls, Fox News Channel's Dr. Keith Abloh. Dr. Keith, Schmidt points out, Elizabeth, New Jersey, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Fort Worth, Texas, Foxville, it goes on on the same weekend. What's going on?
Well, one thing is we know that crowds behave less well than individuals do. Crowds make worse decisions. That's why, when you hear about somebody not being attended to, who's being assaulted, it's always that there are many onlookers, because individuals can do the ethical thing sometimes when crowds decide, we'll take a little off here, we'll take a few liberties there. So the bottom line is, number one, the crowds. Number two, I think social media, Eric, it's a big thing, because these folks are coming in, number one, depersonalized and dehumanized to begin with, from Facebook and Instagram and the rest of it, looking for drama. We've made people addicted to drama, to being in their own little movies, and they're therefore on a hair trigger to begin these kinds of melees, and they think that gunfire, is part of some kind of made-up-for-life drama that they're starring in.
So maybe,
and this is real stuff.
You're saying maybe they're addicted to drama and they're looking for it, but also,
absolutely.
I mean, there are a lot of mall shootings that we're hearing about around the world. Maybe people are just, it's not only the drama, they're also fearful.
Well, I think they're fearful. Number one, they think that there may be shots fired because we as a culture and almost a worldwide people concerned with liberty have a bit of PTSD. We've been exposed to a lot of terrorist events, and people are therefore on edge. But there's another thing they're addicted to as well, and that is the kinds of merchandise that bring them technology. So it used to be a sweater or a pair of pants. Now, not having certain things make you feel that much more like you're disconnected. You don't have the right technology. You don't have the right sneakers. These folks are there looking for their identities when really they need the identity to come from within. But social media deprives them of that, as does a particular kind of consumerism.
Does social media and maybe even video games desensitize
Absolutely.
these kids? Where violence may not seem real when you see it on the screen, but it certainly is real when you're in the mall.
And these people, even the little clip you had there, people say, wow, it was actually scary. Yeah, it's scary because it's real life. But you know what? You toggle enough little video games and you can think that you're the king of the universe and that you can escape things with special weapons and wings to fly anywhere. Bottom line is, these are real events, but I think they may be triggered by the kinds of folks who run Facebook and other sites like that.
Talk to us a little bit about the herd psychology, Doc. I mean, Fox Valley, Illinois, they said up to 1,000 teens were involved in this.
Yeah, and I think that becomes a kind of viral event. The same kinds of feelings that get triggered by a rock concert can get triggered by this kind of mass movement.
What is that right there? What is that feeling that's being triggered?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's an abdication of autonomy. It's a leaving behind of everything you should have been taught at home and perhaps in school, the kinds of ethical choices and choices for self-preservation and care of others that you would make as an individual. People are ready to abdicate that much too soon now to join the spectacle, to be part of that big dramatic explosion that, you know, they think makes them part of something bigger than themselves.
That's dangerous, though. I mean, there is that that filter that you have to say, yeah, I'd like to step out there and maybe abdicate that authority or logic or reason. I'd like to be out there because it'd probably be fun to be out there. I'll step back in. But, man, if 1,000 people are doing it in the same time in the same place, that's real danger.
It's real danger. It's the herd mentality. Remember, it's not long ago that we were saying, how could it be that young females are posting fighting videos to YouTube? Why? Because they don't feel that it's them. They think they're acting in some kind of drama that is removed from their own existence. So what we need is real law enforcement. We need folks who want to preserve their safety really armed. And we need to take this very seriously.
Yeah, we need some parents to get involved, too, maybe. All right, Dr. Keith, we'll leave it right there.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Directly ahead, left-wing professors running wild, including the latest case, a college professor who called for white genocide in a holiday greeting, but conservatives are striking back. We'll have that story coming up.
The #1 cable news show for 16 years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Eric Bolling for Bill O'Reilly, and in the Factor Flashback segment tonight, a Drexel University associate professor claims he's the victim of a right-wing witch hunt after he posted a holiday message on Twitter saying, quote, "All I want for Christmas is white genocide." George Ciccarello Maher, who is white, claims his message was satirical. Drexel called the tweet reprehensible and plans to meet with him. But it's beyond debate that the nation's universities and colleges are dominated by left-wing faculty members. Now think about it. Our kids are being taught by these left-wing ideologues. Now a group called Turning Point USA has set up a website that accuses nearly 200 college professors of, quote, leftist propaganda in the classroom, unquote. Recently, Bill spoke with Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA.
First of all, how do you determine what teachers to put on your list?
Sure. So this project was many years in the making. You know, as growing this organization now to over 1,100 college and high school campuses across the country, we started to encounter incredible biases, some of which you've covered, you know, whether it be at University of Missouri, all across the country. And, you know, what really troubled me is as I talked to adults and donors and even regent members, it was kind of like an urban legend. People didn't really believe all that was happening in our university. It was just kind of like pockets of information. And so we decided to consolidate all of this information, all of the different biases and examples with third-party verification on a very simple, easy-to-use website, professorwatchlist.org. And look, every single incident, every single professor that we put on our website is backed up by a third-party news source. FoxNews.com is mentioned many times. And look, all we want here is to shine a light of what's been going on in our universities. And the response has been incredible by students, by donors, and alumni, mostly thanking us for doing this type of work because this really has not existed until right now.
But this is a serious thing. When you say it's backed up by a third-party reportage, some of the third-party reportage is garbage. And that's the problem, that you really have to know whether the college professor is going into the classroom, because that's a crux of it. When these people go into the classroom and they force the students to think their way, you know, it's a good, healthy thing for college professors to have an opinion and articulate it in a strong way, and the kids challenge it. That's what college is supposed to be. Now, when you put them up there at the website, you know you're putting them in a little bit of danger because people, you know, do you ever think about that?
Well, yeah, I don't think so. Look, I mean, if the professors are so scared of what's going on in their lecture halls being made public, then that's their problem, not ours. And I think parents have a right to know what's going on in these universities. I mean, parents especially are forking over tens of thousands of dollars in tuition, and they should know what these professors have been teaching. And it's important to note, we were very deliberate in what we put on this website, and in the fact that we did not break any news stories. These are all existing on the internet. It's just an aggregator putting them all together. We're simply shining a light light, putting it all in one easy place for parents,
professors,
faculty, and donors to see and understand.
Two of them caught my attention. The first one is Miller Young, teaches feminist studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara. 18-year-old pro-life person.
That's correct. Yes.
Does she have tenure? I mean, did she pay any price at the university?
From what I understand, she's still teaching there. And another example, which you've covered extensively, is Dr. Click, who was formerly at...
She pled no contest, not guilty, but she's still there. And the other guy is Julio Cesar Pino, who the FBI, I guess, is investigating for some kind of Muslim terrorism beef or something?
That's right. And according to several news sources, he is reportedly being investigated for allegedly having connections with ISIS. And an FBI spokeswoman confirmed this 6 to 8 months ago.
Say?
Well, look, again, the official statement was somewhat murky in the sense that he's still teaching there, and then it's trying to be confirmed to the FBI. But look, if I was a donor to Kent State or alumni, or I was sending my kids there, that'd be a huge concern.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd sign up for the class.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Are you kidding me? Right. And so all we're doing here is shining a light. We're not trying to prevent teachers from saying anything or professors from getting their opinions off.
As long as the facts are straight.
Just shining a light.
As long as the facts are straight.
And speaking of facts, here's a good one. Bill's powerhouse history book, Killing the Rising Sun, looks to be the biggest selling adult book of the year. Now is a good time to sink your teeth into that one. Also, Bill's kids book, Give Please a Chance, is #1 in its category. And if you go to BillO'Reilly.com and become a premium member, you can get any one of Bill's books absolutely free. Fact. And my book, Wake Up America, is a great read as we wrap 2016. Just ask President-elect Donald Trump. He wrote a nice quote for the back cover. Still to come, critics of Donald Trump are saying some of his appointees are too rich to serve. Is that fair? We'll debate it in a minute.
By the time you head to the bank...
How rich is too rich to work in the White House? A headline on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today says, quote, wealth of Trump nominees complicates their approval. The article points out that so far Donald Trump has appointed 5 billionaires and half a dozen multimillionaires to serve in his administration. Now, Bernie Sanders, for one, has a problem with that.
It looks like we have a cabinet of billionaires. I guess they have a few poor millionaires on it, but mostly it's 8 billionaires. And this is coming from a candidate for president, Mr. Trump, who told us he was going to take on the establishment. Well, maybe I'm not seeing something here, but you don't appoint the head of Exxon Mobil to be Secretary of State. That's not quite taking on the establishment. You don't appoint the cabinet of billionaires to be taking on the establishment.
But President-elect Donald Trump has heard this criticism before, and he rejects it.
And one newspaper criticized me. Why can't they have people of modest means? Because I want people that made a fortune. Because now they're negotiating with you. Okay?
With us now is Kathy Aru, publisher of Catalina Magazine, and Carrie Sheffield, founder of the website bold.global. Kathy, we'll start with you. What's wrong with wealthy people, successful people being part of the administration? I'm happy that's happening.
Nothing's wrong with being wealthy in this country. It's okay that they're billionaires. I don't exactly agree with Bernie on this. But the problem is, do these people really know D.C.? I mean, I would like to see some people that understand D.C. And the problem is, with their wealth, there's so many financial problems in their lives that it gets so messy that these people may not even see it to the cabinet.
No, DTS. You know what that stands for?
Drain the swamp.
Okay.
Kathy, it's not that they need to understand D.C., it's that they're not from D.C. That's the whole mandate that Trump wrote. Look, I think it's incredibly rich, if I can use that word, that Bernie Sanders is going after this. This man, Bernie Sanders, has 3 houses. His personal income is in the 3.8 percentile income. Come on, give me a break.
He should be in the
Bernie
cabinet.
Sanders has been absolutely dehumanizing and demonizing rich people. These are people who are creating American exceptionalism.
Let's talk about a couple of these guys, Kathy. Rex Tillerson, as Bernie Sanders pointed out, one of the most successful businessmen in the world. Donald Trump, we know, has said, I want to run the country the way you run a business.
Right.
You do you create deals, you make sure the best deal is for your country, your company, and Rex Tillerson fits that bill perfectly.
Well, he fits the bill in the private sector. We don't know if he can do it in the government sector. And no other president has ever mentioned his cabinet members before they're actually approved and gone through the process. We don't know if these people are going to make it to the cabinet. Their financial dealings might be so complicated, there might be such a conflict of interest that
No,
he
okay,
may
fair
not
enough.
make it.
No, that
Look,
could be
I
an
have to
issue if
tell
there's a
you.
conflict
Well,
of
I have
interest
to
on the
tell you.
cabinet level, not on the
Sure.
president or vice president,
And
of the cabinet.
I
Go ahead.
agree. We need transparency. We need accountability. But the thing is, I used to work at Goldman Sachs. Our disclosures, before I even could work one day, I had to tell, my ex-boyfriend's dog's spouse's name. It's like so many things you have to go through compliance. Dodd-Frank, they're overregulated as it is. So we already know about their disclosures.
Let me ask
the
you
other thing
this.
is, though,
Go ahead.
just
Go
in terms of the ability to run complex institutions, feedback is in the private sector. It is accountability. If you don't have a successful business,
But stay right there for
business
1
shuts
second
down.
with me. Can you run a country the way you run a business, especially a company? It would be a company, a $4 trillion company.
Absolutely. You're managing complex institutions. You're managing multi-billion-dollar operations. It's in the same way that the CEO of Coca-Cola can transfer his skills and his judgment to go be the CEO of Home Depot. It's the same transferable skill set.
Kathy, Ford, Carrier, IBM, several other companies have said, we will keep business here, we'll keep jobs here because of Donald Trump. You don't like that idea? That's a good idea.
I like the idea. I'm just saying this cabinet might not make it. Everybody voted for Trump, and they knew what they were getting, the business guy who can make the deals. Yes, we knew that. We didn't know we were going to get an entire cabinet.
What's your pushback with Rex Tillerson?
My gosh, where do I...
What's your pushback with the guy who runs Carl's Jr. as your labor secretary? What's your pushback with Steve Mnuchin, who was a Wall Street guy, running the Treasury? Why the pushback?
Hey, it may not be me. It might be the Senate. They just might not approve these guys. We don't know. We don't know. They haven't disclosed anything yet, so we don't know what they're made of. We
Senate's
just don't know.
52-48. I mean, you're going to need 3 to flip.
They're in good shape, and I agree we want transparency, we want accountability. All of us will agree at the table that's what we need, but the reality is we want people with judgment. We want people who are successful. I think America actually, we're not sick of winning. We need people who are winners. We need people who know how to negotiate.
Speaking of that right there, very quickly, 55% of Americans believe 2017 will be better than 2016. Quick thoughts on those?
According to a poll, and polls are so iffy. I mean, we all know that. Polls are not to be depended on. And 55%, there was such a small group of people, and it's just a faulty poll. It's just a faulty poll.
But if you notice, the one thing about that poll, it's going up, it's rising.
It's also going up.
Getting better.
It also said that 77% said 2016 was a better year for them than 2015. Anyway, forget polls. Look at the stock market. We're getting record highs, 20,000. We've never seen that in human history. Forget polls. Look at the actual companies that are creating jobs.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. Thank you very much, both of you guys. All right, coming up, America loses a Hollywood icon. We'll reflect on Carrie Fisher's life and career and show you her amazing interview with Bill O'Reilly when we come right back.
Thank you for dining with us. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks.
Died today at the age of 60 after having suffered a medical emergency on board a flight to Los Angeles last week. Fisher was an actress and a prolific writer, but she's best known for portraying Princess Leia in the original Star Wars. Bill O'Reilly interviewed Fisher back in 2004 when she was promoting her book, The Best Awful. We thought you'd like to see that interview.
There's a million books out there, very tough sell these days, and take it from me, I know. What would I learn investing money and time in your book?
Well, it's a sequel to a book I wrote called Postcards from the Edge,
Very
which is
successful Meryl Streep film.
Yep. Well, it's about Suzanne Vale, an actress in Hollywood who's the daughter of a celebrity who gets left by a man for a man.
Okay, so you're dumped.
It's very different from me.
No, it isn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. It isn't.
That's what happened to you.
It's
but look,
what happened to me, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to get this story, and some guy leaves you for another guy, and I mean, he's crazy. I mean, I wouldn't have done it.
Thank you.
But what am I going to learn?
Well, you're going to learn what it's like then Suzanne goes off her bipolar medication to find a straight guy.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, isn't it?
I have no idea.
I turned you straight when I got in the outfit in the third Star Wars.
Right, but I didn't have much, you didn't have to coax me too much. I was pretty much there.
That's why I have to take the bipolar medicine and throw it away
So this
now.
is basically an adventure through these Hollywood labyrinth. All right, and I think that's going to do well. People are interested in that. Now, let me talk about you. You do a show on Oxygen.
Yes.
The Babe channel, right?
The Babe channel.
Yeah, I cruise through that once in a while because I like
babes.
I
heard you.
All right.
I made you heterosexual.
I saw you and Susan Sarandon together, and I was very confused. Let's roll the flip.
Okay. I say to Bill O'Reilly, gets a lot of llama.
Give him
a whole lot of llama.
A whole lot of llama.
Has been given on your behalf.
So kill him with kindness.
Yeah, no, send Bill O'Reilly a bunch of bees, llamas, and pigs and goats.
Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, these people will be starting a whole new life, sending their kids to school
and
because
you know,
they now
he
can afford
loves
it.
bleeding heart liberals.
Yeah.
And bees. That's not confusing
what was
at
that all
all.
about?
Well, she is a charity where people send people llamas and bees. And don't you think that people have done that? Does a lot of people some good for her charity, and in the meantime, you get llamas and bees and bunnies.
All right, but I never got any llama. But why would I want a llama, and what good is that going to do somebody to get?
Well, you don't know until you get it.
So
might,
Susan Sarandon sending people llamas. What if they don't want a llama? She sends it anyway?
Well, I think what you do is...
Hey, get that llama off my lawn!
llama, and if people get a lot of... All right.
With all due respect, Ms. Fisher, I had no idea what you guys were talking about there, but I suspect I'm not looked upon with favor by the Hollywood community. Am I correct?
I think you're misunderstood. I think you're misunderstood, and you've got to come out there. They don't know that you love...
The real me?
They don't know the real cuddly you.
Right.
Your inner child.
They don't
know about that.
Right.
You, Bill, that loves disco music.
Right, that's true. You read my book. Excellent.
They don't know that. And if they knew that, I think there would be a lot
Even Susan Sarandon, you think she would embrace
We'd all be at the airport sobbing and playing disco music, Donna Summer cheering, come in.
As me and the llama left.
As you, well,
to go back to New York.
Both. Leaving and coming in. Leaving and coming in.
But really, they really don't like me out there, do they?
They don't like your politics, some of them.
Which are what? I'm an independent.
I thought you were conservative. That's what my mother told me.
Your mother, Debbie Reynolds.
My mother, Debbie Reynolds.
She loves me, though, right?
She does love you.
Right. I would have been really good in Hollywood in the 40s and 50s.
You're still good. My mother is, they're still running around, the conservatives, and my mother's still a babe. And it's not just my mother's
But Susan
babe.
Sarandon, I'm not going to win her over, am I?
You're not going to win Susan, and the other conservatives golf a lot. So you're going to have to go
I think you guys are reading me wrong, but that's okay. We want everybody to buy your book, The Best Awful. And we really appreciate you coming in here, Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And really, thanks a lot for the Princess Leia deal.
Oh, thank you for turning straight. I turned the other guy gay.
It wasn't turning. I think I was always there, but it encouraged me.
That's good, too.
Our thoughts go out to the family of Carrie Fisher. And that's it for us. I'm Eric Bolling in for Bill O'Reilly. And please remember, the spin stops here because we're looking out for you.
Breaking tonight, new